The stars stretched across the endless night like silver dust. Far away in a shining palace of crystal towers lived Queen Asira of the Lumari people. Her kingdom was a land of harmony, where songs carried in the air and light was shaped into great works of beauty. Yet behind her calm smile lived a wound that had never healed. Many years ago, her daughters had been taken from her. The memory was sharp in her heart. Lyra and Nira had been so young, full of laughter and curiosity. They had traveled with trusted guards on a small vessel to visit a learning station near the borders of the realm. But raiders from the shadows of space had struck, fast and merciless. The vessel never returned. Search ships had gone out again and again, chasing rumors and traces, yet nothing had come back except silence. Time passed, but sorrow remained. Every year the queen lit 2 lanterns above the palace, their glow reaching into the sky, as if calling for the lost children. The Lumari people mourned with her, for their princesses had been beloved. The loss became a story whispered through the kingdom, a tale of grief and unanswered questions. While the queen carried her sorrow, life in the wider galaxy continued. Far from the shining capital, humans had settled their own corners of space. They built small colonies on quiet worlds, planting fields, raising families, and exploring when their hearts called for adventure. Among them lived a man named Tamash, a pilot known for his stubborn spirit and restless eyes. Tamash worked as a trader, carrying supplies between distant stations. His ship was not grand, but it was steady, a craft he had repaired with his own hands many times. He had no family with him now, only the stars as his companions. Often, when he drifted alone, he thought of the stories told about ancient explorers who had crossed oceans back on Earth. He felt the same hunger to see what lay beyond. One quiet voyage changed everything. Tamash was traveling through a barren region of space, an area avoided by most pilots because it offered no trade and no safety. His navigation screens showed only scattered rocks and faint clouds of dust. He expected nothing more than silence. But then he noticed something strange. A signal blinked faintly on his receiver, so weak it was nearly lost in the static. At first he thought it was just the echo of broken equipment, but the rhythm was too steady. It was not noise. It was a distress signal. Curiosity pulled him forward. He adjusted his course and followed the faint call, moving deeper into a maze of asteroids. His engines hummed as he dodged drifting stone and metal. Hours passed as the signal grew stronger, until at last he found the source. Hidden within the belt was a vessel half buried in rock. Its hull was scarred and its lights were dead. It looked ancient, as if it had been abandoned for years. The distress beacon pulsed slowly, weak but steady, calling out across time. Tamash felt a shiver of wonder. Who had left this ship here? What story slept inside its cold shell? He guided his craft close and locked it to the broken hull. Wearing a suit, he stepped into the darkness. The air was thin but still present. His light cut through the gloom, showing walls covered with dust. The corridors were silent, yet they carried a strange sense of waiting, as if the ship itself had been holding its breath for someone to arrive. Deeper inside, he discovered the heart of the mystery. In a chamber lined with stasis pods lay 2 figures. The pods glowed faintly, their power barely alive after all this time. Through the glass he saw faces 2 young women, resting as if in sleep. Tamash froze. He had seen many things in his life, but never this. Who were they? How long had they been trapped here? He checked the controls and realized the pods had been running for many years, perhaps since before he had even left his home colony. The energy was nearly gone. Without help, the pods would fail soon, and the women inside would never wake. For a long moment, he stood in silence, hearing only his own breath. Logic told him to leave. Taking them aboard would bring danger. He did not know who they were, or what enemies might come searching for them. Yet another voice spoke louder inside his heart. These were lives waiting to be saved. To walk away would be the same as letting them die. He set his jaw and began to work. Carefully, he connected his ship's power to the pods and began transferring energy. Alarms blinked, then steadied. The glow grew brighter, and at last the pods began to open. The women stirred, their eyes fluttering open. They looked at him with confusion and fear. One whispered, her voice weak, "Where are we?" "You're safe," Tomasz answered softly. "I found your ship. You've been asleep a long time. My name is Tomasz. I'm human." The sisters looked at each other with relief and shock. Slowly, they introduced themselves. "I am Lyra," said the elder. "This is my sister Nira. We are daughters of Queen Asira of Lumari." Tomasz felt his breath catch. He had heard the name. Even on human worlds, stories of the lost princesses had reached traders and travelers. He had never thought them real, only legend. Yet here they were, alive before his eyes. The sisters told their tale in broken words. Raiders had attacked their vessel. They had been taken captive but not killed. Instead, they had been placed into stasis, left behind for reasons unknown. They had no idea how many years had passed. Tomasz listened, feeling the weight of their words. The lost daughters of a queen stood before him, fragile but alive. He realized the choice before him. He could turn away, leave them, and carry no burden. Or he could keep his promise and try to take them home. He looked at their tired faces and made his decision. "I will take you back," he said firmly. "No matter how far, no matter what stands in the way. You belong with your people." The sisters stared at him, surprise shining in their eyes. They had known fear and sorrow for so long, yet this stranger, a human they had never met, spoke with such steady resolve. Slowly, trust began to grow in their hearts. Together, they returned to his ship. Tomasz secured the sisters in safe quarters and guided his craft out of the asteroid belt. The stars stretched wide before them, filled with danger and hope alike. For the first time in many years, the daughters of Queen Asira were moving toward home. Far away, the queen lit her lanterns once again, her silent prayer drifting into the night. She did not yet know that fate had answered her. She did not yet know that a human, guided by nothing more than compassion, had found what her kingdom had lost. And so the journey began. The hum of Tomasz's ship echoed softly as it glided through the empty stretch of space. Inside, the air felt warmer than the cold corridors of the derelict vessel he had left behind. In the small living quarters, the two princesses sat close together, their eyes wide as they looked at their strange rescuer. Tomasz moved with quiet focus, checking controls and adjusting the course. He did not look like a hero. His clothes were simple, worn from years of work. His hair was untidy, his hands marked with the grease of old repairs. Yet the sisters could see something strong in him, a steady confidence that gave them comfort. Lyra spoke first, her voice soft but filled with curiosity. "You said your name is Tomasz. You are human." "Yes," he answered, glancing back with a faint smile. "From a colony far from here. We live simple lives. We build, we trade, we explore." Nira, the younger sister, leaned forward. "Why did you save us? You did not know who we were." You could have left us in the dark. Tomasz paused before answering. He looked at the stars through the wide window and thought of the silence he had felt inside that broken ship. Because you were alive. Because no one deserves to be left behind. The sisters shared a glance. In their kingdom, many stories had been told of humans. Some painted them as reckless wanderers, others as bold fighters, and a few as builders of strange machines. But they had never heard of a human like this one, someone who risked himself simply for kindness. As the hours passed, they began to tell him their story more clearly. Years ago, when they were still young, their mother had allowed them to travel on a small vessel. It was meant to be safe, guarded by soldiers and guides. But raiders struck with speed and strength. The guards had fallen one by one, fighting to protect the sisters. The raiders had captured them and sealed them in stasis pods. Why they were spared was never clear. Perhaps the raiders planned to demand ransom, perhaps they wished to sell the princesses, or perhaps it was only cruel chance. What mattered was that the raiders never returned. Maybe they were destroyed by rivals, maybe they fled, or maybe fate itself ended them. All that remained were two sleeping daughters and a silent ship drifting in darkness. Lyra's voice trembled as she remembered. We dreamed in the pods. Strange dreams of light and sound. But we could never wake. It was like being trapped in a glass cage, watching the world through mist. Lyra clutched her sister's hand. We thought no one would ever find us. We thought we would sleep until the stars died. Tomasz listened quietly. His hands rested on the controls, but his heart was with their words. He imagined his own family, the ones he had left behind on Earth's distant colonies. What if it had been his sister, his brother, or his mother lost in the void? Would he not pray for someone to help? You are not alone anymore, he said firmly. I gave you my word. I will take you home. The sisters felt the weight of those words. They did not fully understand this human yet, but they sensed truth in his voice. The journey ahead was not simple. The Lumari capital was many systems away, and the path cut through dangerous regions. Tomasz knew raiders, pirates, and automated defense systems could appear at any time. Yet he did not hesitate. The first trial came sooner than expected. As his ship left the asteroid belt, an alarm flared across the console. A shadow moved on the radar, another vessel, large and fast, closing in. Tomasz cursed under his breath and scanned the readings. It is a raider ship, he said grimly. Fear rose in the sisters' eyes. Memories of capture burned fresh in their minds. They clung to each other, whispering in fear. Do not worry, Tomasz told them, his voice steady. I will not let them take you again. The raider ship hailed them, demanding surrender. Tomasz ignored the call. Instead, he pushed his ship into sharp maneuvers, diving through rocks and clouds of dust left over from the belt. His vessel was smaller, weaker, but it was also faster and more agile. The sisters watched as Tomasz handled the controls with skill, his eyes sharp and calm. The raiders fired beams of light that streaked past them, but Tomasz twisted the ship at the last second, dodging with daring moves. He led the enemy into a narrow canyon between massive rocks. The raider ship followed, firing wildly. Then Tomasz made his move. He cut power for a heartbeat, letting his ship drift silent, hidden in the shadow of a great stone. The raider vessel sped forward, searching. At the perfect moment, Tomasz reignited his engines and slipped behind them. He fired a single shot at a weak point in their hull. Sparks flared, and the raider ship spiraled out of control, crashing into the rocks. The sisters gasped in awe. They had seen warriors fight before, but this human's tactics were different. He used cunning, speed, and nerve instead of brute force. Nero whispered, "He fights like no one we have known." Lyra nodded slowly. "He is human. They say humans never give up, no matter how great the odds." Tomasz only shrugged when the danger had passed. "They will not trouble us again," he said simply, as if the battle had been nothing more than a storm to weather. The sisters began to see him not only as a rescuer but also as a protector. Their trust grew stronger with every passing hour. Days turned into weeks as they traveled. The journey gave them time to speak and learn about each other. The princesses spoke of their home, the shining towers of Lumeri, the rivers of light that flowed through their gardens, and the songs that guided their ceremonies. They told him of their mother, Queen Aesira, who had ruled with wisdom and kindness, yet carried sorrow like a crown since their loss. Tomasz listened with interest, his mind painting pictures of this wondrous realm. He also shared his own stories. He told them about his colony, where people worked hard to build homes in wild lands. He spoke of fields of golden grain under strange suns, of machines that hummed through the night, and of families gathering to tell tales of Earth, their ancient home. The sisters were fascinated. They had known of humans from afar but never heard their lives described so simply. They admired the way Tomasz spoke of his people, not as conquerors or rulers, but as builders and dreamers who carried hope across the stars. Slowly, friendship formed. The princesses laughed again, something they had not done for many years. Tomasz found himself smiling at their joy. Though they were daughters of a queen, in his eyes they were simply two young women who longed for home. Yet dangers continued to rise. In another system, they faced ancient defense drones left behind by a forgotten war. The machines woke as soon as Tomasz's ship entered their range, firing beams of searing light. Tomasz did not panic. He studied the drones and quickly saw their patterns. They moved with precision but without creativity. He led them in circles, forcing them to follow predictable paths. Then he turned their own fire against them, dodging at the last instant so their beams struck each other. One by one, the drones fell silent. The sisters cheered softly, amazed by his cleverness. To them, this human seemed to carry a spirit of survival unlike any they had ever seen. At night, when the ship drifted in quiet space, Tomasz often sat at the window, staring at the stars. Sometimes Lyra or Nera joined him. "Do you not wish to go back to your own people?" Lyra asked one night. "I do," Tomasz admitted. "But first, I must keep my promise to you. Your mother has waited too long. She must see her daughters again." His words carried no selfish desire, no thought of reward. He spoke only with the strength of a promise. The princesses felt their hearts warm with gratitude. In the darkness of their long captivity, hope had almost died. Now, because of this human, hope lived again. The path to Lumeri was still long, but the sisters no longer feared it. For they had found a protector, a guide, and perhaps even a friend. And far away, in the shining palace of crystal towers, Queen Aesira looked once more to the sky. Her lanterns burned as always, but on this night the flame seemed brighter, though she could not say why. The journey was not over. Greater trials lay ahead. But the bond between the human and the lost daughters had begun to grow strong, and it would carry them through storms yet unseen. The stars outside shifted slowly as Tomasz's ship moved across the void. Inside, the hum of the engines gave steady comfort to its passengers. The two sisters, Lyra and Nera, had grown calmer since their rescue. Their fear had softened into trust, and they now looked at Tomasz not only as a rescuer but also as a friend. Tomasz worked at the control station, scanning the maps of space. His mind stayed sharp, for he knew danger could strike at any moment. The path to the Lumari capital was long, and it passed through regions controlled by raiders, pirates, and forgotten machines of war. He had to guide them carefully if they were to reach their home alive. The sisters often stayed near him, watching as he adjusted the ship's systems. They had never seen a human vessel from inside before. It was smaller than the grand ships of their kingdom, and its design was simple, built for one man. Yet to them it felt strong, alive with the spirit of its pilot. One evening, as the ship drifted between systems, Nira asked softly, "Do you not fear traveling through such dangerous places, Tomasz?" He looked up with a small smile. "Fear keeps me awake. It reminds me to be careful. But I will not let fear control me. I made you a promise. That is stronger than fear." Lyra studied him with thoughtful eyes. "Our people believe promises are sacred. You keep your word as if it is your life." Tomasz nodded. "It is. A person without their word is empty. Out here, in the silence of space, all we have is trust." The sisters felt his words settle deeply in their hearts. They began to understand what made humans unique. It was not only their courage or skill, but their stubborn faith in promises and bonds. The first test of this bond came when their supplies began to run low. Tomasz had planned carefully, but the battles with raiders and drones had forced longer routes. His fuel and food stores were shrinking fast. "We must stop at a trading outpost," he told them. "It is risky, but without fuel we cannot continue." The outpost was a rough place, built on a hollow rock that spun slowly in space. Traders, smugglers, and wanderers passed through, but law was weak there. As Tomasz guided his ship to dock, he warned the sisters, "Stay inside. Do not let anyone see you. If they learn who you are, trouble will come." Lyra and Nira obeyed, waiting nervously while Tomasz went out to trade. He moved through the crowded halls, his eyes sharp, his steps steady. Many eyes followed him, for humans were not common in that place. At the supply station, Tomasz bargained with the keeper. He traded spare parts from his ship for food and fuel. The deal was nearly done when a group of rough men stepped forward, blocking his path. "You are far from home, human," their leader sneered. "What brings you here?" "Trade," Tomasz answered simply, his hand resting calmly on his pack. The men laughed. "Trade, or hiding? Perhaps you carry something of value." Tomasz felt their eyes searching him. He knew at once what danger meant. They were raiders in disguise, hunting for secrets. He kept his voice steady. "I carry only what I need to survive. Nothing more." But suspicion lingered in their faces. Tomasz pushed past them without fear, his body tense but his steps firm. They followed for a time, then turned away, muttering. He returned to his ship quickly, knowing the outpost was not safe for long. When he entered, the sisters rushed to him. "We were afraid you would not return," Nero whispered. Tomasz smiled faintly, setting down the supplies. "I always return. That is another promise." The ship lifted away, leaving the outpost behind. The sisters felt relief, but also growing respect. This human did not boast, did not seek praise. He simply acted with quiet strength. Their journey continued, but soon they faced another peril, an area of space haunted by great storms of energy. Lightning danced across the black sky, striking with blinding force. Tomasz studied the storm carefully. We cannot go around it. It stretches for many systems. We must pass through. The sisters held hands tightly, fear clear on their faces. Yet Tamash's voice was calm. Do not be afraid. I will guide us. He steered the ship into the storm. The hull shook as lightning struck around them. Sparks leapt across the panels, alarms screamed, but Tamash's hands never left the controls. His eyes were fixed, watching the flow of energy. Trust the rhythm, he murmured, guiding the ship like a sailor riding waves. He shifted the craft up and down, weaving through arcs of light. The sisters could hardly breathe as they watched. The storm raged, but Tamash seemed to read its movements, finding safe paths through chaos. Hours passed in a blur of thunder and fire. At last, the storm broke, and silence returned. The sisters let out cries of joy and relief. You guided us through death, Lyra said, her voice full of awe. Tamash only nodded. Storms are like men. They look fierce, but they all have patterns. You must find the pattern, then you can survive. The princesses understood. To him, danger was not something to fear but something to learn. Days later, another trial came. A pirate fleet appeared on their scanners, blocking the path ahead. This time there was no chance to hide. The fleet hailed them, demanding surrender. Tamash's ship was too small to fight such numbers. He knew it. But surrender was not an option. He looked at the sisters, who clung to each other in fear, and made his choice. He broadcast a false signal, pretending to be a trader carrying disease samples. The pirates, fearing infection, hesitated. Tamash then fired flares and released a cloud of debris from his cargo bay, making his ship appear damaged and unworthy of capture. The pirates scanned, argued, then turned away in disgust. Tamash used the moment to slip past them unnoticed. When safety returned, the sisters laughed with relief. You tricked them, Neera said with wide eyes. Tamash smiled slightly. A fight is not always won with guns. Sometimes the mind is sharper. Lyra looked at him deeply. Your people must be full of such cunning. Not always, Tamash admitted. But when we must, we find a way. That is how we have survived so long. The sisters fell silent, thinking about his words. In their hearts, they began to see the truth of humanity's spirit, not just strength or bravery, but cleverness and refusal to give in. As the journey stretched on, their bond grew stronger. At night, they shared stories by the glow of the ship's lights. The sisters told Tamash of their childhood, of gardens filled with singing crystals, of their mother's gentle hand as she taught them the songs of their people. Tamash listened with quiet respect. He told them of his own childhood, of simple fields under alien suns, of stories passed from one generation to the next. He spoke of Earth, the old home of humanity, a place he had never seen but still carried in his heart. The sisters felt wonder at his words. Though their worlds were different, they saw the same love of home, the same longing for family. One night, as stars drifted slowly outside, Neera whispered, "Do you think our mother still waits for us?" "Yes," Tamash said firmly. "A mother never stops waiting. She will wait until the stars fade, if she must." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time they were not tears of sorrow but of hope. The days ahead still promised danger. Tamash knew they would face suspicion when they reached the capital. He was only a human, an outsider. The queen might not believe his story at first. But that was a trial for another day. For now, his focus was clear: bring the daughters home, no matter the cost. The ship pressed forward, carrying 3 lives bound by fate. The sisters had once been lost, their voices silenced by stasis and darkness. Now they laughed again, learned again, and dreamed again, because one human had chosen not to walk away. And far ahead, on a throne of crystal light, Queen Aesira still lit her lanterns each night. She did not know how close her daughters were. She did not know that across storms and dangers, hope was flying home. The journey through storms and pirate-filled space at last carried Tamash and the princesses near the borders of the Lumari realm. As the ship crossed into the guarded region, the sisters' hearts beat faster. The stars here were brighter, their patterns familiar. For the first time in many years, they looked upon the same skies that had once been home. Tamash studied the readings carefully. Patrol ships were everywhere, scanning for intruders. He knew the Lumari were cautious with their borders, for raiders had troubled them often in the past. It would not be easy for an unknown human vessel to pass. As expected, his ship was soon surrounded by 3 sleek Lumari crafts. Their weapons glowed faintly as they locked onto him. A sharp voice filled his comm screen. "This is Border Command of the Lumari Kingdom. Identify yourself at once." Tamash kept his voice steady. "I am Tamash, a human trader. I carry passengers who must be returned to your queen." The officer narrowed his eyes. "Passengers? What passengers?" Tamash stepped aside so the camera could see Lyra and Nira. The moment their faces appeared, the officer froze. His voice shook. "By the stars, it cannot be." Lyra spoke, her voice trembling with emotion. "I am Princess Lyra, daughter of Queen Aesira. This is my sister, Princess Nira. We live." The officer bowed his head at once, though his face showed disbelief. "We were told you were lost long ago. If this is true, then you must be brought before the Queen herself. Follow us." The patrol ships guided Tamash craft toward the capital world. As they descended through the skies, the sisters pressed their hands against the glass, their eyes wide with tears. Below them stretched the shining city of towers and bridges of light, gardens that glowed like jewels, and rivers that shimmered with color. It was the home they had feared they would never see again. The ship landed before the great palace, its spires glowing with crystal fire. Guards in shining armor rushed forward, their faces filled with shock as they recognized the princesses. Whispers spread like wind after all these years, the lost daughters had returned. Tamash followed them into the grand hall. It was vast, with walls of living crystal that sang softly as light passed through them. At the far end sat Queen Aesira on a throne carved from a single starstone. Her robes shone like woven starlight, but her face was lined with years of sorrow. The hall fell silent as the queen looked upon the newcomers. Her eyes widened when she saw the sisters. For a long moment she did not breathe. Then she rose slowly, her voice low and unsteady. "No, it cannot be. My daughters are gone. I have mourned them all these years." "Mother," Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. "It is us. We are here." The queen trembled but did not move forward. Her heart had been broken too many times by false hopes, by rumors and tricks from those who sought to gain her favor. She had learned to guard her heart against disappointment. She turned her gaze to Tamash, sharp and filled with suspicion. "You bring me strangers who wear the faces of my daughters. Who are you, human? What game do you play?" Tamash bowed his head respectfully. "I play no game, Your Majesty. I found them in a derelict ship, trapped in stasis. I could not leave them. I brought them here because this is where they belong." The queen's eyes narrowed. "And why should I believe you?" Humans are wanderers. Many of your kind seek wealth and power. Why would one of you risk his life for strangers? Tomash raised his head, his voice steady and plain. Because they were alive, and they needed me. That was enough. The queen studied him, but her suspicion did not fade. She looked back at the sisters. If you are truly my daughters, then tell me what only they could know. Tell me the song I sang to you each night before sleep. The hall grew silent. Tears streamed down Nira's cheeks as she stepped forward. In a trembling voice, she sang a soft melody. The words were of light guiding through darkness, of rivers carrying hope to the sea. Lyra joined her, their voices blending together, carrying the very tune that had once echoed through their childhood chambers. Queen Aesira gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Her body shook as the truth pierced her doubts. With a cry of joy and sorrow, she rushed down the steps and embraced her daughters. They clung to her, tears streaming as years of grief melted away. "My children," the queen whispered again and again. "My children, you are truly here." The hall erupted with gasps and cheers. Courtiers and guards fell to their knees, overcome by awe. The story of the lost princesses was known to all, and now, before their eyes, it had been rewritten. Yet even in her joy, the queen's eyes returned to Tomash. Gratitude flickered in her gaze, but so did unease. She held her daughters tightly and asked, "And what of this human? Why did he risk so much? What does he seek from me?" Lyra pulled away gently and spoke with firmness. "Mother, without Tomash we would still be lost. He found us when no one else could. He protected us through storms and battles. He asks for nothing but to see us safe." Nira nodded quickly. "He is our friend. His courage is the reason we are alive." The queen's heart was torn. She had been raised to guard her people, to trust few beyond her own. But the truth stood clear: this human had done what her fleets and spies had failed to do. Still, she needed to test him herself. "Come closer, Tomash," she commanded. He stepped forward until he stood before her throne. Her eyes pierced into his, searching for greed or hidden desire. "If you have brought my daughters back to me, then you hold the greatest treasure in this kingdom. Tell me, human, what do you wish as reward?" Tomash met her gaze calmly. "Nothing, your majesty. I ask for no gold, no power, no title. I only wish to keep my word. Your daughters were lost, and now they are home. That is enough for me." The queen studied him long. She had faced liars, traitors, and schemers all her life, but this man's eyes were clear. She saw no hunger for riches, only quiet resolve. At last she spoke, her voice soft but full of wonder. "Perhaps the tales of humans are not complete. Perhaps your kind is more than wanderers and fighters. Perhaps you are also guardians of promise." The court murmured in agreement. A queen's words carried great weight, and now they saw this human in a new light. The reunion lasted through the night. The city glowed with celebration as word spread that the princesses had returned. Bells rang, lights filled the skies, and songs of joy echoed through every street. But even as happiness swept the land, Tomash felt the distance between himself and the world around him. He had no place in the palace, no family among these people. He was glad for the sisters, but he knew his role was almost over. The queen sensed his quiet withdrawal. She found him standing on a balcony, looking at the stars. "You do not join the celebration," she said gently. Tomash shook his head. "This is your joy, not mine. I am glad for it, but my path lies elsewhere." The queen studied him. You gave me back what I thought lost forever. How can I let you leave without honor? Honor is not given by titles or wealth, Tomasz answered. It is given by keeping promises. That is all I wanted. For the first time, Queen Asira smiled at him with warmth instead of suspicion. Then you have my respect, human. And the respect of all my people. Whether you stay or go, your name will live here as the one who returned my daughters. Tomasz bowed his head humbly. Inside, he felt a quiet peace. He had done what he set out to do. He had given hope back to a grieving mother. And though he thought of leaving soon, part of him wondered if the story was truly finished. The palace had turned into a sea of joy. Lights burned in every tower, music drifted through the streets, and people gathered in crowds to see the faces of their returned princesses. The city had not known such celebration for many years. But while the kingdom rejoiced, Tomasz remained quiet. He stood at the edge of the grand halls, watching the sisters smile and laugh as their people welcomed them home. The sight filled him with peace, yet also with a strange emptiness. His task was complete. He had guided them through storms and dangers, brought them safely to the arms of their mother, and now his place seemed finished. The queen, however, had not forgotten him. For days after the return, she watched Tomasz from afar. He never asked for gifts, never boasted of his deeds, and never sought power. Instead, he moved with a kind of stillness, as though waiting for the moment he could slip away unseen. One evening, Queen Asira summoned him to her private chambers. The princesses were present, their eyes bright with affection for the man who had become their shield and guide. Tomasz, the queen began, her tone softer than before, you have given me back the light of my life. In return, I would give you anything within my power. Say the word, and it shall be yours. Tomasz bowed. Your Majesty, I ask for nothing. My reward was in seeing your daughters safe. Lyra stepped forward quickly, her voice urgent. You cannot leave us with nothing said. You carried us when we were weak, you fought when we were helpless. You are part of our family now. Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. Stay with us, Tomasz. Do not walk away. Tomasz looked at them both with gentle affection. Your kindness humbles me. But this is your world, your family, your kingdom. I do not belong here. My path is my own. The sisters felt sorrow in their hearts, for they knew his words were true. He was human, a wanderer of stars, and though he had become their guardian, he did not share their blood or their home. The queen, however, was not ready to let him go so easily. She had ruled long enough to know that destiny sometimes sent gifts that must not be cast aside. She leaned forward, her eyes strong. If you will not take wealth, then take my blessing. Wherever you go, know that you have the gratitude of a queen and the honor of a kingdom. From this day, the name Tomasz will be spoken with respect in the halls of the Lumeri. Tomasz bowed deeply. That is more than enough, Your Majesty. For several weeks, he remained in the palace as the kingdom celebrated. Everywhere he went, people saluted him, called him hero, and offered gifts. He accepted their kindness with a smile but never let it bind him. His heart told him that he could not remain. At last the time came. Before dawn one morning, he walked to the starport where his ship waited. He had kept it ready, as though part of him had always known this moment would come. But he was not alone. Lyra and Nero were already waiting by the ramp, their cloaks pulled tight against the cool morning air. Their eyes shone with both love and sadness. You would leave without saying farewell. Lyra asked softly. Tomasz lowered his head. Goodbyes are easier in silence. Words make them harder. Lyra shook her head firmly. We will not let you vanish like a shadow. You mean too much to us. For a moment, he was quiet. Then he looked at them both with calm eyes. You are safe now. That was all I wanted. Your people need you, your mother needs you. But my journey does not end here. I must keep walking. Lyra stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. Then promise us this. No matter how far you travel, no matter what dangers you face, you will remember us. Tomasz gave a faint smile. I will remember. Always. They embraced him one final time, their tears wetting his shoulder. Then they let go, knowing that no words could chain a wanderer's heart. When Tomasz turned, he found Queen Asira herself waiting nearby. She had followed in silence, watching the farewell. Her eyes were filled not with suspicion now, but with respect. You are unlike any human I have known, she said quietly. Many of your kind seek only gain. But you sought nothing and gave everything. You remind me that greatness is not in power, but in keeping faith. Tomasz bowed to her one last time. Your Majesty, I am grateful for your trust. May your kingdom know peace. The queen placed her hand over her heart, a gesture of deep respect among her people. Go with the light, Tomasz. Wherever you wander, know that you will always have a home here. With that, he boarded his ship. The engines hummed to life, and slowly, the craft lifted from the ground. The sisters watched, their hands clasped together, as the ship rose higher and higher until it was only a star among stars. Inside the vessel, Tomasz sat alone at the controls. He looked once more at the shining world behind him, then set his course for the unknown. Ahead stretched endless space, filled with dangers and wonders. He did not know where his path would lead, but he knew why he walked it. He had proven that a single human could change the fate of a kingdom, not by strength of arms or hunger for glory, but by simple loyalty to a promise. That was enough. As the stars streaked past his ship, Tomasz allowed himself a small smile. The universe was wide, and somewhere out there, others still waited for a hand to lift them from darkness. And he would be ready. Back on the Lumari world, the queen stood with her daughters at the balcony of the palace. The city was alive with light, and songs of hope echoed in the streets. The people had their princesses again, and with them, a new belief. For now they knew that even among the wandering humans, there were those who could bring back what had been lost. There were those who could keep faith when all others had let it fade. Queen Asira held her daughters close and whispered, "He gave us back more than life. He gave us back hope." The stars above shimmered like distant fires, and though Tomasz was gone, his presence lingered. His name became a story told by mothers to children, by teachers to students, by travelers to strangers. A story of the human who walked among them, asked for nothing, and left behind everything. And so his journey continued, but his place in their hearts remained forever.